Cinematography, one of my favorite elements of a movie, one of my favorite Oscar categories. Now I'll be making an Oscar ranking video about cinematography wins of the 2010s, but before I get to that, I wanted to make a top 10 list of the best cinematography Oscar nominations from that decade that did not win. These are all stunning works of art that would have made great Academy Award victories in Best Cinematography. And in some cases, it was the film's only Oscar nomination. Such was the case for number 10, Roger Deacon's Prisoners.
Hi. Morning.
What a fantastic movie Prisoners is from 2013. Stellar performances by Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman and Paul Dano and so many people in that cast. I always thought Prisoners from director Denis Villeneuve deserved more than just that one Oscar nomination in cinematography, but at least there was that, and so well deserved. And Roger Deacon's cinematography has this chill about it, really captures this place and time. His impeccable work behind the camera perfectly matches the very dark tone of the narrative, and this man proves time and time again just how insanely talented he is as a cinematographer. You can best believe you're going to hear the name Roger Deakins again in this video. Number 9, Jeff Cronin with The Social Network.
Mr. Sabbath. Mark!
There truly is nothing like the cinematography in a David Fincher movie. I mean, going all the way back to the beginning of his career, David Fincher is such a precise visual director. When we think of his movies, so many images come to mind. There is not a wasted shot, a wasted moment, and such was definitely the case in 2010's The Social Network, which is such a beautiful movie to behold. Cinematographer Jeff Cronin, whose name will also be mentioned later in this video, brings this confident and intense sleekness to The Social Network. The way he gives that college almost a dreamlike texture, there's a lot of oranges and yellows. The coldness he brings to those boardrooms, those meeting rooms where there's a ton of people around the table. There is this feeling with Fincher and Cronin that you're in such good hands, and every shot is a marvel to behold. Number 8, Emanuel Lubeski, The Tree of Life. So Lubeski, who I believe is referred to as Chivo on his productions, was on the cusp of 3 straight cinematography Oscar wins. Around the time of The Tree of Life's release in 2011, he of course won Best Cinematography for Gravity and Birdman and The Revenant. I mean, talk about talented, my god. This man isn't just a great cinematographer, he works magic. He creates, invents new technology to bring these mind-blowing visions to life. He became director Terrence Malick's go-to cinematographer for many films around this time, and I do think the best work they did together was for The Tree of Life. What gorgeous cinematography to get lost in for a few hours. I mean, there is not one shot of The Tree of Life that doesn't take your breath away. It is so sumptuous, so involving. The way the look of that movie brings us into the lives of this family in this specific time period, it had to look this dreamy, this beautiful. Malick and Lubeski are a match made in heaven, and the work they did together on The Tree of Life is just spectacular. Number 7, Bradford Young, Arrival.
Louise. I am Louise.
So for his very well-deserved Oscar nomination in cinematography, Bradford Young became the first African-American to ever be nominated at the Oscars in this category. That is kind of insane to me, talk about overdue, but oh my god, the look of Arrival. This is such a magnificent movie to behold on the biggest screen possible. I remember seeing Arrival opening night and being swept away, yes, by the engaging story, that phenomenal lead performance by Amy Adams, which should have gotten an Oscar nomination, hello, but also by that cinematography that brings these lavish, incredible visions of science fiction to life. In recent years, CGI can look really, really bad, phony, tacky, in even the biggest motion pictures being made, but such was not the case in The Amazing Arrival. What a great Oscar nomination this is. Number 6, Matthew Libatique, Black Swan. So here we have another very important director-cinematographer collaboration, Darren Aronofsky and Matthew Libatique. Their work started right at the beginning with Aronofsky's feature film debut, Pi, and then they worked on Requiem for a Dream together, many other projects, all the way up to Black Swan in 2010, which of course won the Oscar for Natalie Portman and Best Actress. There is so much to love about Black Swan, but the cinematography, the look of that movie, the way the camera follows Portman, the use of mirrors and shadows and darkness in that movie, it's just so brilliant. And I think about the way that dance is captured at the end. Like the cinematography of Black Swan really captures the sense of unease in this narrative for the viewer. Matthew Libatique is such a gifted cinematographer. What a talent. Number 5, Jaron Blaschke, The Lighthouse.
Why'd you spill your beans, Tommy?
Oh boy, this is a special Oscar nomination for cinematography, for a few reasons. 1, this was The Lighthouse's only Oscar nomination. 2, it's the only title in this list shot in gorgeous black and white. And 3, this is a rare Oscar nomination for a horror film. The Lighthouse, from director Robert Eggers, starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, is a strange, surreal movie that the Academy easily could have overlooked. They could have said, you know what, this isn't for us. We're not going to give it anything. That the cinematographer's branch went out of their way and gave The Lighthouse an Oscar nomination is one of the coolest things that has happened at the Academy Awards in recent years. Jaron Blaschke's work with director Robert Eggers has been so impressive in films like The Witch and The Northman, but I do think if there was one collaboration they'd had so far that deserved an Oscar nomination, it was The Lighthouse. The dark, chilly, ominous, black and white photography in that movie I have never forgotten. It truly does bring out the best in that haunting narrative and those two marvelous performances. The Lighthouse from 2019 is a great, memorable genre film that would not be the same without that cinematography. Number 4, Hoyt van Hoytema, Dunkirk. So Van Hoytema won his very much deserved Oscar in cinematography for Oppenheimer. The astonishing grand scale of this man's work is just a wonder to behold, and his first Oscar nomination came a few years before, also for a Christopher Nolan movie, Dunkirk. I mean, let's face it, I do think it helps as a cinematographer when you're collaborating with Christopher Nolan. This guy brings out the best in all of his collaborators in editing, in music, in visual effects, and in the performances. But when I think about Dunkirk, I go to those images, starting with that beautiful opening shot of those soldiers walking down that street, and then the scenes at sea, the scenes in the air. This looked to be a very difficult movie to pull off, but Nolan and Van Hoytema do it, giving us an entirely new vision of a World War II story. Dunkirk is simply extraordinary from a cinematography standpoint, and Hoyt van Hoytema is one of the best in the business. Number 3, Jeff Cronin, Weth, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So I told you you'd be hearing a couple names more than once in this video, and here is our first double dip for 2011's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, another phenomenal collaboration between director David Fincher and cinematographer Jeff Cronin. This film became a rare movie these days to win the Best Film Editing Oscar without a Best Picture nomination. And you know what? It would have made a really cool cinematography Oscar win as well. This might be my favorite David Fincher movie on a visual level. I mean, wow, it's just breathtaking. Fincher and Cronin were of course riding high from their success on The Social Network, and it's like they wanted to keep pushing themselves on this new venture. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo had already been made into a movie internationally, and so they had to put their own visual stamp on this story, and they do so in such a beautiful way. The dark colors in this movie, the use of snow, winter. If the story wasn't so dark and disturbing, it would almost have a Christmas movie vibe. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is easily one of the most underrated films of 2011, and I do think the cinematography in that movie is one of the finest of the decade. Number 2, Roger Deacon's Skyfall.
Hello, James. Welcome. Do you like the island?
And here we have Roger Deakins back again. I mean, this guy is one of the very best cinematographers to have ever lived. He has countless Oscar nominations. He finally won 2 prizes at the end of the 2010s. One of my absolute favorite nominations of his was for Skyfall from 2012. We had never seen a James Bond movie look like this. Like, Casino Royale also has impressive cinematography, but what Roger Deakins does for Skyfall is just amazing. No 2 sequences look the same. I mean, you have the opening action set piece, lots of car chases and fast camera movement. There's that tense action scene in the tall building that's done mostly in blue color. There's that memorable shot of the villain, played by Javier Bardem, walking across a room, and the camera doesn't budge. There's that gorgeous mansion at the end, and then the fire in the darkness. I mean, spectacular. Just spectacular work from beginning to end in this movie. Roger Deakins took an action-packed James Bond film and turned it into a work of art. And finally, that takes me to my number 1 choice. What do I think was the best Oscar nomination in cinematography of the 2010s that didn't win? This was a very easy call to make. My number 1 pick is, of course, John Seale, Mad Max Fury Road. So I understand that The Revenant is an impressive feat of cinematography. As I've already talked about in this video, Emanuel Lubeski is one of the best cinematographers in the business, and it makes sense that he won his 3rd Oscar in cinematography, the 3rd year in a row. The Revenant is very often gorgeous to look at, but Mad Max Fury Road is in a league of its own. What director George Miller and his cinematographer John Seale were able to capture in this movie has never been done beforehand, and it will never be done again. So much practical work you can see on the screen. It's almost tangible. Those intense car chases through the desert with explosions, with countless vehicles colliding with each other. You can feel the danger on the screen. This is not wall-to-wall CGI. This is a group of gifted, confident, very courageous filmmakers who are putting their lives on the line to capture greatness, who go way beyond the standard way of capturing an action movie like this and allowing the astonishing cinematography to blow the minds of every person watching the movie. Every action scene is breathtaking. The quiet moments where characters are just talking and reflecting, those moments are also immensely powerful. I love everything about the cinematography in Mad Max Fury Road. The specific use of colors, the use of that desert landscape, and yes, those action scenes will never not be amazing. Cinematographer John Seale is a genius. Thank God he has been Oscar nominated before, and he won for The English Patient in early 1997. His incredible work behind the camera goes back decades to films like Witness and The Talented Mr. Ripley and Cold Mountain, and so many fantastic feats of cinematography. But the best work he's ever done, and should have won the Oscar for Best Cinematography of 2015, is George Miller's masterpiece, Mad Max Fury Road.